Danielle, and here with me is Destiny. We're going to be discussing how we can bridge the gap between racial inequality and ethnic divide. Is that anything that you ever think about?
Sometimes.
Yeah, so sadly in today's society and for many, many years, people of different skin colors and ethnic groups have been viewed as inferior to other races simply because of their race, skin color, or ethnic group. Racism, according to one reference, is a belief that race is a primary determinant of human traits and capacities, and that racial differences produce an inherent superiority of a particular race. What would you define racism as?
I would define racism as a particular group not liking another group of people based on the tone of their skin or where they're from.
Right. So this belief has resulted in much harm. Feelings of racial superiority have provided justification for colonial treatment and slavery of other groups of people, wrote Professor Wen-Ching Sing in his Handbook of Cultural Psychiatry. He added that race has been used to justify social, economic, and political inequalities. Even today, racism exists in many parts of the world. Discoveries in genetics have also confirmed that the fallacy of racism, and also that researchers studying people from different continents have found that the differences in DNA between any two randomly chosen individuals from virtually anywhere in the world amounted to about less than 0.5%. Therefore, just 14% or less of the 0.5% variation occurred between racial groups. Because humans are genetically homogeneous, says the journal Nature, genetics can and should be an important tool in helping to both illuminate and diffuse the issue of race. How do you feel about that?
I agree.
Okay. Well, in addition to that, prejudice may have a number of causes on why racism has been, brought about into the system. Nevertheless, two well-documented factors are, number one, the desire to look for a scapegoat, and number two, the resentment caused by a history of injustice. Can you think of any injustices that might have been, either now, recently, or back then?
Yeah, I feel like there's injustices every day. Most recently, the one that is more so worldly known is the one with George Floyd, and just right here in the backyard with Trayvon Martin.
Right. Well, in addition to that, for example, when a disaster occurs, many people like to, look for someone to blame. So when prominent people repeat an accusation against a minority group often enough, it becomes accepted and a prejudice is born. And racism has also been grounded in history for 400 plus years, which has been the catalyst, such as the slave trade, building the intellectual edifice of racism and cultural contempt for African American people, in which the slave traders attempted to justify their actions by claiming that the African Americans were inferior to them. In addition to that, African Americans have the highest chances of being arrested and sentenced for minor crimes and misdemeanors, and often spend time in jail for infractions that typically result in fines for white offenders. What do you feel about that?
I think it's pretty crazy, but what can you do?
Right. Well, in addition to that, bias among judges are also well documented, and research evidence suggests many judicial conclusions are based on the prejudicial beliefs widely held in American society. Further, the nation's law enforcement system patrol more heavily in neighborhoods with more African Americans than white Americans. And how do you feel about that?
Again, I feel like it's pretty crazy, with my husband being he used to be a police officer. He actually used to bring out how they were sent to areas that were said to have more crimes or violence and stuff like that, and it always seemed to be more widely black neighborhoods, unfortunately. So
Yeah. And what do you think that can be done to stop racial or prejudice?
That's a very hard question. I mean, because I feel like that's something that's everywhere and within everyone. So you would literally have to stop it at the source hundreds of years ago. So
Right. And I think it's also important that we make sure that we educate others on these types of issues and make sure that they see that it actually is an issue. Because if they don't see that it's an issue, then it can't be corrected.
I agree.
Thank you.